So what does broccoli gas have to do with space?
Yeah, so broccoli gas is kind of this really sort of like exciting summary of this group of gases which are produced by a process that's called methylation. And that's the process that microbes and a number of plants, including broccoli, and all those other good brassica vegetables, so cabbage, Brussels sprouts, everything kind of in that family. So all of those plants, along with a lot of microorganisms, produce these methylated gases where they're adding a CH3 group, so a carbon and three hydrogens. And that process is done by them because it attaches that methyl group to, say, some sort of toxic thing in the environment, like arsenic, or something else that is really detrimental at the cellular level. And as a result, these cells or plants produce methylated gases. And these methylated gases can build up in planetary atmospheres. And particularly, we are interested in thinking about them as a sign of life, specifically because that process that I just described, is a little bit complicated, and it actually really only takes place by biological organisms. There are very limited ways for that to occur otherwise. So we think that it is a really clear, straightforward kind of one-to-one signal of the gas being there and then there being life on a planet.
So
Yeah.
what you're doing is looking at other atmospheres, or what are you looking at for this gas?
Yes. So we're specifically thinking about how this group of gases can build up in planetary atmospheres. So particularly in exoplanets, so planets around stars other than our sun, we don't really see these methylated gases in our solar system. There's a little bit on Mars, but that's produced through one of the potential non-life pathways, but that's not something that builds up a lot in the atmosphere. We only know that from being on the surface on Mars. So really, when we think about the kind of work that I do, it's really simulating planetary atmospheres, and thinking about, for different concentrations of surface environments and things like that, what do we get kind of in an atmospheric signal, and then using models of different instruments to kind of figure out how long it would take to observe different levels of these gases with different instruments. So we do simulations for things like NASA's JWST, which was recently launched in actually almost a year ago now. But we are specifically thinking about like how could we actually try to see these gases in the near future.
Where did this idea come from?
Yeah,
Your brain?
not quite. So there actually has been some previous work done with other methylated gases. So the work that I do specifically is on methyl bromide, so CH3Br. There has been some previous work done on methyl chloride and dimethyl sulfide, both of which are kind of other methylated gas groups that we see here on the Earth. And so we kind of expanded that to kind of look at methyl bromide. We're kind of just working our way around in this small area on the periodic table. And so kind of exploring different parts of that parameter space, I guess. And specifically with methyl bromide, we actually found that the methyl bromide atmospheric buildup around certain types of stars is actually even greater than it is for methyl chloride. And so the previous results from methyl chloride were really favorable for really small, cool types of stars, so stars different than our sun. And we find that methyl bromide actually built the enhancement around those stars is even greater. And it would potentially be impactful for being able to observe life.
Is this gas the reason that broccoli stinks when you cook it and stinks when you sometimes eat it too?
Methyl bromide is also used as a fumigant, so I don't think it's like a super pleasant gas. As in terms of like if it's directly associated with like the smell of broccoli, I don't know personally.
Okay. So does the Webb telescope pick this up? How do you measure other planets for this? How can we get that far away from our own planet?
Yeah, so obviously, unfortunately, we're not going to planets outside of our solar system really anytime soon. And so the main way that we do that is we use specific instruments on telescopes like JWST or telescopes here on the Earth. And specifically, we basically use this tool called spectroscopy, which breaks the light from the planet or whatever you're observing up into a bunch of like all of its different wavelengths. And each wavelength can be associated with different things that absorb in the planet's atmosphere. So there's absorption spectra that we've measured for the Earth, and you can see things like water, you can see carbon dioxide, you can see methane, you can see all of these things in the planetary atmosphere. So we're using that same technique and applying it to planets around other stars. That's sort of at the very most cutting edge kind of doing this kind of exoplanet science, specifically because for things like life, we're specifically interested in Earth-like planets, and Earth-like planets tend to be smaller in terms of like planetary size distribution, and smaller planets are harder to observe simply because they're just smaller. And so that's kind of right at the cutting edge. JWST is not. It may be able to do some preliminary searches for these biosignatures, which is what we kind of call these gases that are really indicative of life. But in terms of like really definitively being able to look at like a bunch of different planets and really kind of try to understand what's going on there, we're really looking at next generation grounded space-based telescopes in the 2030s to 2040s. So it will be a little while before we're really looking for these specific gases.